many different triggers that start your mind and keep it running. I want to talk about one of the most prevalent issues of a mind that can't stop. We're experiencing an information overload epidemic. Never before in human history have human beings been bombarded on a daily basis with so much information. The news channels pushed in front of our noses every day, showing trauma, fear, death, destruction, fire, flood, and heartbreak in high definition. Because shocking fear is what glues people to their TVs and mobile news feeds, unfortunately. If we go back just one generation, you wouldn't hear about so much death and destruction. This child died. This car crashed that killed a young mother. You were hardly exposed to this on a daily basis. You might read it in the papers. You might hear about it through a colleague or a friend or a family member, but it was disconnected from you. It wasn't in your face. So that when trauma happened, that was close to you. It was the exception rather than the familiar. So exposing our brains to the constant barrage of car crashes, flooding, terrorist attacks, school shootings, environmental destruction, war, these images and messages go deep into our unconscious mind and actually create a lot of unconscious stress. Let me ask you a powerful question. Do you need to know about every single car crash that happened in your town, in your city, in your country? What are you supposed to do about it? You're powerless to do anything other than experience compassion and empathy for the people suffering. But when you're constantly programming your mind with death and destruction, it does something to your psyche. It triggers a flight response or a fight response that's constantly running in the background. All that this does is numb you from feeling anything. When you're no longer getting an emotional response watching the death and trauma in front of you, because it's so commonplace. What a sad state of affairs we are in. But it gets even worse. It actually results in our unconscious mind being unwittingly programmed to seek out and unconsciously create the situations that result in the very accidents we keep seeing. In other words, our minds will actually seek out and fulfill the conditions for whatever it is presented with, even the very things that we fear and wish to avoid. My recommendations are to be careful with what you allow into your brain, the images, the messages, because many of them are difficult to undo. You can't forget some traumatic images that get burned into your brain. And do you really need that? How is it supposed to benefit your life? It just doesn't. So stop watching the death and destruction on the news that massively affects your mind and your emotions. Be mindful of what you're letting in. Crime, fraud, betrayal, genocide, atrocities. You don't need to expose yourself to this constant barrage of images and messages that cause you nothing but stress, apathy, or even worse, actually creation of these types of events in your life. And if you do need to inform yourself of the potential dangers to your life, your family, and your safety and well-being, then simply do it when you are best placed to handle these types of inputs. Research shows that being well hydrated and having stable blood sugar levels allows you to handle stressful information and situations easily. Even better, watch the news with full conscious awareness so that your unconscious mind is not programmed to repeat any traumatic patterns. This approach will allow you to set up a mental firewall, a critical psychological filter that will protect your sensitive and highly suggestible layers of your unconscious mind from unwittingly adding this content to your unconscious to-do list. This simple approach is like giving a Teflon coating to your mind so that toxic content, stories, images, and conditionings will not be able to stick. So now I want to talk about social media. Constantly looking at what other people are doing, comparing your Facebook feeds to others, watching YouTube videos on arbitrary entertainment of puppies and kittens. What's this doing for you? We've become information junkies, watching the next YouTube video on the most random stuff. Don't get me wrong. There's some amazing content out there that massively benefits people's lives. And entertainment, it's a great thing. We need to be able to enjoy life and watch movies. But when we're losing ourselves in our Facebook feeds and our YouTube channels, constantly watching random information, constantly cramming data and information into our minds, Your mind has no choice but to try and process it, to think about it, or try to filter it out. And once again, this is random content. It's distracting you, and it's using up large portions of your vital, essential bandwidth and mind power you can instead use to create most amazing life, all the riches and wealth and empowering experiences you and your loved ones need to thrive. So become aware of your social media habits, of how much time you are spending binging on mental, emotional junk food each and every second that you're on Facebook, on YouTube, or Instagram. So don't overload your mind unnecessarily. Give it time to rest and recharge itself. And don't keep feeding it unessential content that it has to process. I say give it the content that you want to work on. Be selective in what you put into your mind to work on.